You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies. Hello and welcome to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Evan Lang, and with me, as always, my intrepid partner, Skyler and Evan.
Neither of us got traded.
I mean, I got traded, but then I got traded back, so does it really count?
You traded for and then they DFA'd you and you signed back.
Has that ever happened where in the same deadline or in basically the same sort of transactions, player gets traded to another team and then as part of another deal gets traded back?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if traded back. It's probably happened or something weird like that. Baseball's been around for a while. I was just thinking of like the one Rogers that was traded one place and then immediately traded somewhere else.
Well, I was just kind of wondering, it's like, oh, I got traded to the Yankees, and the Yankees traded me to the Braves, and the Braves traded me back to the Rockies.
Yeah, roundabout way. I'm sure there has been in the history of baseball. If our friend Patrick Lyons is listening, there's a job for you.
Baseball's been around for a long, long time, so Patrick, let us know. But speaking of trades, today's episode comes to you hot off the heels of the 2025 Major League Baseball trade deadline. And Skyler, the Rockies actually did some stuff.
They hit the quota minimum.
Yep. So last episode, when we had recorded, we discussed how the Rockies had traded Ryan McMahon to the New York Yankees in exchange for pitchers Josh Gross and Griffin Herring. And then the Rockies at the deadline went ahead and made two more moves. They traded Tyler Kinley to the Atlanta Braves, and they traded Jake Bird to the New York Yankees as well. And Skyler, what are your thoughts overall on, we might as well just get right into it. Did the Rockies do enough?
No. But I also put an asterisk on that of, I also feel like they did as much as they were actually possibly able to do as an organization. Because in order to trade players, a lot of the time, those players have to have value. And in general, a lot of the more tradable players on the roster did not have value. So, those expiring contracts, when you're guys like a Tyler Estrada, Kyle Farmer, those types of guys, there's no value and no teams are really looking for that. And so, what can you do? So you trade Ryan McMahon, which they did several days prior, the previous week. Did what you could there, and got good enough. Whatever. Tyler Kinley is expected. You moved him for what you could, and same with Jake Bird. He was probably the most the one that was most notably traded, I would say, on the deadline day between the two relievers. But other than that, we would have liked to see more, of course. That's what we always say.
And we'll get into what the Rockies didn't do in a little bit, but first we'll talk about what the Rockies did do. And we already talked at length last week about the Ryan McMahon trade, so we might as well just jump into it. Tyler Kinley, largely a salary dump, not making a ton of money, but it gets the remainder of his contract off the books, and Tyler Kinley is sent to the Atlanta Braves in exchange for right-handed pitcher Austin Smith. And on its head, it's not that amazing of a return. It's a 26-year-old Double-A reliever who was drafted in the 18th round back in 2021 by the Braves. He's having not that great a season. He actually started off very strong. It's not really until July, actually, honestly, that his ERA sort of started to inflate. He ended the month of June with a 1.32 ERA in Double-A. And unfortunately, it got a little bumpy after that. But it's tough because he's older, he's not a ranked prospect, And he's got some interesting stuff. He's got a 1-2 fastball slider combo. The fastball can reach 99. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that he's already had Tommy John. And that is why he's missed significant time. I believe he had Tommy John surgery in 2023.
Yes.
And missed the majority of the 2023 and 2024 seasons, which slows your development, of course. So, if he hadn't, he potentially could have been in Double-A or higher earlier. That's unfortunately what Tommy John's going to do to you. But it's not a terrible return. They got a controllable asset with some upside in exchange for getting Tyler Kinley off the books, and the Braves get a warm body to throw on the fire for all of their pitching injuries.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what the Braves are doing, getting Carlos Carrasco. They got a couple others. So, and part of it, too, with like the Braves, you can see why they get Kinley. Kinley has not had a good season. He has had his moments, and he's having one of his better moments as of late, leading up to this trade. And so, salary dump, he's got an affordable club option for next season. No, he's not making a ton this year. It's like a $5 million for next year. So the Braves have some guys coming off the books in the bullpen. Hey, if he kind of like a Pierce Johnson, this kind of situation to think about with just the deal itself. Not so much the return, but a guy that's affordable, has control for next season. Braves need some guys, so you can swap that over, and they have an option for next year that's already under team control.
Yeah, and for guys like Austin Smith, we just finished speaking with, before recording this, Albuquerque Isotopes center fielder Braden Ward, a 16th round pick. And guys who are drafted later in the draft, like Austin Smith, who was an 18th round pick, they'll surprise you. And some of the stuff that he's got to offer is pretty good. Right now, it's just tough because he is at that advanced age. He's already had Tommy John, and he's hit a little bit of a bump in the road right now. But if you look at the sample size of the beginning of the season through the end of June, he was actually pitching quite well. And that's something to like. He's something. Like there is not no upside for this trade.
Yeah. And the way I've looked at it is the Rockies just traded for a younger version of Tyler Kinley. Now, this is a guy who can throw a meaty fastball, has some intriguing off-speed stuff, high strikeout numbers, so he can get the whiffs. It's just finding his command and throwing strikes, which is something Tyler Kinley always struggled with. And then when he would rein it in and be honed in on it, a really good reliever. And so that's kind of what this was a we're swapping out the old model for the new model. And that's the way I look at it with Austin Smith. What he has to offer is it's just Tyler Kinley, which is okay. Like you'll see what happens. That's what Bill Schmidt said. We'll see where it goes with him. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing is, Tyler Kinley is one of those guys where it was kind of hard to see the value of. Yes, he had pitched very well in the month of July leading up to the deadline. Through the month of July, he had like a 2.31 ERA in 11 appearances, 11 and 2/3 innings. But he came into the month of July with a 6.75 ERA, and at some point in June, his ERA was at 7.85. And that's not even the high point of the season, where he's been bouncing between 6 and 7 for most of the year after a pretty brutal start where he struggled a lot right out the gate, and then he seemed to rein it in for a little bit, and then he hit another burst where he was struggling again. And for Kinley, that's sort of always been the problem, is you're never really sure which Tyler Kinley you're going to get. And sometimes that Tyler Kinley was nails, and sometimes that Tyler Kinley was not.
Yeah. And isn't it crazy to think he's been with this team since 2020? Like, it's weird to think of how long Tyler Kinley's been with the Rockies. 6 years, 6 seasons. With the Rockies from 2020 through 2025. He's already made one appearance with the Braves, at least on Baseball Reference. So as of Sunday, maybe he pitched, who knows. But gave up 2 hits in an inning of work, 1 strikeout, 1 walk. That's what you're going to get. And that's what the Rockies always got. He did struggle with Coors Field a lot. Away from Coors Field, a lot better. Found a lot better success. But Evan, talking about a guy being nails, let's reflect real quick on that 2022 season with Tyler Kinley. Remember when he was just lights out, incredible those first couple months?
Yeah, started the season with a 0.75 ERA, and then unfortunately ran into the injury that basically threw everything off. And that's not a particularly small sample size. That's 25 appearances. He had a 0.75 ERA.
Yeah.
This was a year where we were talking about should Tyler Kinley potentially be the Rockies all-star representative. And unfortunately, injuries derailed that, and it took him a while to come back from those injuries as well. Where, especially last year, a lot of it was waiting to see if he could bounce back. And at the end of the year especially, there was a lot of me feeling like this is a lot more like the Tyler Kinley that we had seen back then, but just never really able to get back to that level he was at.
Yeah, like a solid, reliable reliever, but he's kind of he's not one that you can set your watch to. Like you were saying, you just don't know what Kinley you were going to get on any given night. But it's a shame he didn't get to pitch, maybe in some better teams, but a versatile guy, middle reliever, closer, had those 12 saves in 24. So, I think he'll fit in well with the Braves, and they can tap into something kind of like they did with Pierce Johnson. Maybe the strikeout numbers go up, the control gets better. So I think a good change of scenery for a good veteran. We'll miss Mr. President.
Yeah. A guy that very, very likable. Like, never heard a bad thing said about TK, and I wish him the best, and I hope that he is enjoyed by Braves fans. He's off to a pretty good start. Of course, a small sample size, but he has yet to give up a run in his first 2 appearances in a Braves uniform, and that includes the unfortunately very damp Speedway series.
The Firefly series.
I feel, that's so rough. Like, if that were in a special series, like a special event, they never would have started playing yesterday because it was pouring rain.
And also, who's serving bunless wieners at any type of event? Even if that was just a NASCAR event, how do you not have buns?
No, it's a logistics thing. What it really reminded me of is 2020, the stadium series the Colorado Rockies played at Air Force Academy, where it was very clear from the get-go that logistically they just were not prepared for that many people and for that kind of event.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we wish the best for TK. We thank him, as we did for Ryan McMahon, for his years of service in a Rockies uniform, of, having some highlights on some pretty rough teams. And, it's sad that he never really got to experience any of the positives of Rockies baseball coming in after the contention window had slammed shut. But we ended up being, at least so far in his career, and probably, he's 34 now.
Yeah.
We're his longest landing place.
Yeah. No, he had that great year in 2019 with the Marlins. They put him on waivers. Rockies pick him up. They were pretty impressed. Then he undergoes that Tommy John surgery, and they signed him to that extension. Went up because they liked what they saw, and so they signed him to that extension. Make sure he was taken care of and everything. It just didn't fully pan out, but a reliable reliever. Like, couldn't ask for much more. Well, you could ask for more, but
at the same time, we got what was needed out of Tyler Kinley. Honestly,
yeah.
I made a joke earlier this week after the deadline when the Rockies did not move Jimmy Herget, which we'll talk about later. Which is the Rockies do not need a 2.86 ERA reliever, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But Kinley was what was needed from this team, which is a guy who can come in almost every night and pitch an inning or two and just get us through the game.
Sometimes it'll be good innings. Sometimes it won't be.
But honestly, that's like I said, that's all you need.
Yeah.
But once again, thanks to TK, and we move on to the next trade that the Rockies made, the final trade of the deadline that happened on deadline day, and that was reliever Jake Bird sent to the New York Yankees in exchange for 2 prospects. And this is the one where, honestly, the return is about as good as it would have gotten, considering how much Jake Bird has struggled over the last month. Jake Bird really was not having a good time, even going back to as early as June. But in July, before being traded, Jake Bird had a 19.89 ERA. That hurts, especially when he was so good for so long to start the season. ERA as low as 1.41 early in June, pardon me. And that's a bummer, but it's not super common for trades to be made that far in advance before the deadline, and maybe you could have gotten something more for him, but he is sent to the New York Yankees and freshly shorn. That was a trip, seeing him without a beard. It's been a while. Yeah, it was hard to recognize him. But the Rockies get second base prospect Rock Riggio and a left-handed pitching prospect named Ben Shields. And Skyler, Rock Riggio is probably the highlight of this trade. He's 23 years old. He was the Yankees' number 10 ranked prospect in their system. He's a power hitting second baseman with okay enough defense, and largely, it's bravado is what they called it. He's got the swagger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, an offensive-minded second baseman, more so than a lot of the Rockies. They have more, maybe defensively-minded second baseman with some offensive capabilities. He's kind of the opposite of the power hitting, a good offensive second baseman. Glove probably still work in progress. No, not shabby by any means, like most of these guys. But yeah, he seems like the highlight of it for them. Type of thing.
Yeah, it fills a position of need because, as we discussed over at Purple Row in our State of the Position series for mid-season, the Rockies, outside of Ryan Ritter and Adael Amador, really don't have any standout second base prospects right now. They just don't. And that's not to say that maybe some will be coming, especially the guys who are coming up from, the Complex League or Dominican Summer League at some point. But right now, it's really just Ritter and Amador. And the question is, if neither of those guys pan out, well, then what? And that brings in Rock Riggio, who doesn't have the defensive versatility of the other two guys. Ritter is mostly a shortstop. Adael Amador came up as a shortstop. They can both play other infield positions. Riggio is second base only. They have tried to put him at shortstop. It didn't really work out. He just doesn't really have the agility or arm strength for other infield positions, but he plays a fine second base. But really, what you're getting in Rock Riggio is a guy with a lot of pop in his bat. And is that so bad?
No, not necessarily. Well, right, because who was playing second base for them in Hartford right now? Because once guys moved up, Dion Jorge moved over to shortstop, and so then that's left. Second base can kind of open. I mean, so you need guys to fill out the organization, and notable guy in Rock Riggio. So, throw him in there. He was already there with the Somerset Patriots. He's got 18 homers on the season between all the levels he's played, rehabbing and whatnot. And high A and double A. Double A's got 11 homers. So, a guy to fill out the organization, and who knows, maybe something happens. He can move up. An intriguing piece. If an Amador doesn't pan out, or one of these guys doesn't pan out, you've got a guy in the chamber of we can give him a shot and see what he can do.
Yeah. And to follow up on what you said, who's playing second base down in Hartford? The majority of the reps have gone to Dion Jorge, who's primarily a shortstop. And now he's taken over at shortstop more with Jose Torres moving up to AAA Albuquerque. You've got Nick Kent, who is probably not going to end up being a big leaguer. You hate to say it, but organizations are full of guys like that. GJ Hill, who was recently sent down to Spokane, and Braylon Wimmer, who's much more of a utility guy. He'll play all over the field. He's not really a dedicated second baseman. So this gives Hartford a dedicated second baseman that is also going to be a well-regarded prospect for the Rockies organization.
Yeah,
he immediately slides in their top 15.
Yeah, and you think next year with Albuquerque or Hartford, well, there's your penciling in your starting second baseman, because we're assuming, Amador or Ritter will be up on the big league roster. You need somebody who can play second base. Well, there you go. We got Riggio who can start there next year. So it's forward thinking of filling a gap, like you're saying. And Riggio, is he the flashiest prospect that they could pick up? Probably not, but swapping him with Jake Bird in the organization, you get him for Jake Bird. It's not a bad trade. It's not a bad deal.
No, not at all. And in the trade, the Rockies also got a fairly interesting pitching prospect, and we will talk about him after we take a quick break.
What?
So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. We are talking post-trade deadline for the Colorado Rockies. Still talking about the trade of Jake Bird to the New York Yankees. And Skyler, the other player that the Rockies received in this trade, he was ranked the 28th prospect in the Yankees organization prior to coming over to the Rockies, is probably one of the more interesting stories for the guys that we've received in the deadline. It's a 26-year-old undrafted reliever by the name of Ben Shields, who has some pretty interesting stuff. His fastball is decent, but he's got a pretty killer curveball slider combo that's made him interesting. And really, it's been his age that's more made him less highly touted as a prospect, but he's looking at him closer to the big leagues than you'd probably think he was. He's playing already in Double-A. He was a strikeout leader in his conference in college. This is a really interesting pickup to me.
Yeah, and no guy to just take a chance on and whatnot. You just see what you can get for him, and kind of maybe sweetens the pot a little of Jake Bird off your hands and whatnot. But a guy that seems to be kind of under the radar. That hey, we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, and like we talked about with Josh Gross and Griffin Herring last week, Ben Shields is a starter for now, where you can definitely see him profiling as a single or multi-inning reliever kind of guy, just because his fastball is, like I said, okay. It is fine. It's really not super impressive, but it's got decent carry and arm side run that he uses to generate whiffs in conjunction with his very good curveball and very good slider. And he, despite his age, like, he's 26 years old, but he's moved through the farm system for the Yankees very quickly. Like I said, he's already up to Double-A. He's been in a couple different levels this year, 4 different levels of play so far in 2025. He missed a little bit of time at the beginning of the season with a hip injury, but what you like to see is that so far this season, he's averaging 10.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. And what do the Rockies need? They need guys who can strike people out. And this is an interesting pickup for a team that needs some interesting guys.
Yeah, and he's a left-hander, and that's something that's thin in the organization. Just like with picking up Griffin Herring. It's another lefty is what they wanted to fill up more. That's something that they've lacked in this organization is lefties. And Evan, isn't it weird that most of the lefties in this organization are like mid-90s, low 90s fastball? Like, it's a lot of just funky lefties that don't throw hard.
Yeah, funky lefties with okay at best fastballs, but it's more about like their deception and their breaking pitches. The Rockies have a type when it comes to lefties. Let's say
Kyle
that.
Freelands, if you will.
From Kyle Freeland to Carson Palmquist to Sean Sullivan to now Ben Shields. But, they've made it work for him.
And this is a quick tangent. Who is the hardest throwing lefty lefty starter? We'll say it's starter because relievers, they can get nasty. But the hardest throwing lefty starter in Rockies history. It's hard to think of one, isn't it?
It is, but I'm also not very good at remembering handedness.
But like Mike Hampton?
Hampton threw decently hard. Not like crazy hard, but he could throw it. I'm pulling up our starting pitchers.
But I just think, like you said, they have a type when it comes to lefties. Jeff
What was
Francis,
what was the average?
Rosa.
What was the average velo on DLR's fastball?
He always seemed like a 93, 94 type of guy. It's like pretty average.
I'm pulling up our old friend Jorge De La Rosa on StatCast to see what it says.
Of course, StatCast was really coming around when he was on his way out of the league.
That is true, but it goes at the very least back to 2015. It actually goes back pretty far. But yeah, the hardest he ever averaged on his fastball was 94.1 in 2009.
Yeah. And like
not exactly
Tommy Jones and whatnot.
Not exactly lighting eyebrows on fire with that kind of velocity.
A lot of, like average velocity type thing. Yeah, so like, there's a specific type. Shields fits that as well. It can work. Doesn't matter about velocity. It just if they can control it.
Yeah, you got to place it well, and that's been the issue with Carson Palmquist is making sure that he places that four-seam fastball as well, because if he leaves it and it doesn't get any rise or sink to it, it's going to get demolished, and that's what we've seen so far in Palmquist's early career. But overall, I don't think the Rockies had a bad trade deadline. I like most of the pieces. I think we got a pretty good return, both for Ryan McMahon and for Jake Bird. And as of now, all 5 of the returns that we got have made their debut with the Rockies organization. Ben Shields made a start over the weekend for Hartford, pitched 5 innings of 2-run ball, struck out 4, walked 1, gave up 4 hits. Not bad at all. Josh Gross had a pretty solid outing in his debut with Spokane up until the 5th inning, where things kind of went off the rails. But the first 4 innings, he had looked really good. Griffin Herring gave up 2 earned runs in 3 innings in his Spokane debut. And Austin Smith with Hartford pitched a scoreless inning of relief as well. And the only offensive player, Rock Riggio, he's just getting started. He's only played in like 2 or 3 games so far with Hartford. He's got an extra base hit, and he's clicking along. He hasn't done really anything super huge yet, but the deadline literally just happened.
Yeah.
And the Rockies, we're going to see more moves. We're going to see more reshuffling throughout the organization in terms of who's in the minors and who's at what level. We just saw them pick up a waiver claim from the Texas Rangers in, what's his name? Blaine Krim. There's going to be a lot of shuffling probably over the next week or so.
The next couple of months till the end of the season. Throughout this month is, guys get released so they can get opportunities to get on a big league roster before September 1st. So they can be eligible for a playoff team as needed. Kind of like Elias Diaz last year, or Jerson Profar, that type of stuff. But I don't know, Evan. This is like, yes, that question of like, did the Rockies do enough? And, they did what they could. They did the bare minimum of some of the things they were supposed to do. But, I don't know. You still can't help but feel like they've still missed something.
Yeah.
About the trade deadline of where they're at. Because we saw a team that did do a fire sale that, honestly wasn't in as bad of a position, at least play-wise. They weren't in as bad of a position. It's still not great. And there's a financial aspect to it all for the Minnesota Twins. But still, we saw a true fire sale at this deadline.
Yeah, and it was hard not to think, why aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
Because I would give overall of the deadline, I would give the Rockies like a C, a flat C, for doing the bare minimum of what was expected for them.
They showed up to class and did their assignments.
And we've seen several outlets make fun of them that way. It was in The Athletic, it was in a couple other ones, of the Rockies finally acted like a team as bad as they truly are by selling. They got rid of Ryan McMahon, and they got the Yankees to take his entire contract. They got rid of Tyler Kinley, they got rid of Jake Bird, they got rid of assets they did not need, and got prospects back. It was what they were supposed to do, but you can't help but feel like they should have done more. My minimum baseline was that I wanted them to trade at least one more person.
Yeah.
And that could have been Jimmy Herget, that could have been Mickey Moniak, that could have been Tyler Freeman, just somebody. Because the Rockies do still have excess goods. And I understand that probably the hardest one is our buddy Germán, where if Germán Marquez had not gotten hurt, had not had that bursitis flare up in his shoulder, he's not on this team.
Yeah, he's a Boston Red Sox. He's somebody else.
Yeah, he is off playing for a contender. And, it sounds like that's been pretty tough emotionally for Germán, who's trying to think about, what his future is. They asked him, Thomas Harding of MLB.com asked him basically, it's like, what do you think? Are you going to be here next year? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And basically got an, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he could have had that decision made for him, essentially. Because over the last month or so before he'd been hurt, he'd been pitching very well. Like a sub-4 ERA over that stretch of time where any contending team would have been happy to add him to their rotation.
And that's what I think of, too, is could the Rockies have been more active earlier? And I know that's how teams are. You wait until the last couple days leading up to the deadline. That's just the tradition. That's how it works. So you can get those last-minute deals where teams are maybe more likely to overpay for things because they're desperate. I can understand that. But, sometimes I wish teams could be a little bit more active before the end of July. Maybe we should move up the trade deadline to the All-Star break type thing. Something like that. And I'm not saying that's what you should do, but maybe you have to move it up. Maybe adjust it. I don't know.
Yeah, because like I said, if it were more common to make trades earlier, then the Rockies could have moved on from Jake Bird while his value was at the absolute peak. And of course, there were times that the Rockies should have traded these players ages ago. Like the optimal time to trade Ryan McMahon was last year. The optimal
during the off season.
Yeah, and it's the same for Jake Bird. And it's the optimal time. It's like Elias Diaz in 2023. The optimal time to trade Elias Diaz was at the 2023 All-Star break. Instead, they held on to him, and at the All-Star break in 2024, he had 2 bum hamstrings and ended up getting released.
Yeah.
And for Germán, maybe they should have traded him earlier. And it's tough because I know the Rockies like him, and this is the only organization that he's ever known. And if I'm being honest, as long as the Rockies make other moves, I would not mind having him back. But it's got to be at a reasonable deal. You can't pay a premium for a pitcher who is not a premium and is not a premium need for this team. And also, we make fun of this all the time, but Germán's got to want to be here for that too. And I would not blame him at all for wanting to see if the grass is truly greener on the other side of the fence, to go and try and win something that he hasn't had an opportunity to do now in 7 years.
Yeah. No, and you gotta, there's just so many missed opportunities of, and this trade deadline was kind of a culmination of all the other trade deadlines. We say, the Rockies did more than usual. They made a couple trades last year and the year before that. Or not so much the year before that, but they've made they've done these bare minimum moves of, we're going to move a couple of relievers. The only extra was they traded Ryan McMahon this year. That was really the only difference with this trade deadline event.
Is that they moved the bigger names for once. It wasn't just the off-season rentals and the low-risk, high-reward pickups from the off-season.
Yeah.
It was, they traded essentially their best player and their best reliever.
Yeah. But even then, these Jake Bird, Tyler Kinley are not high-profile names. And Ryan McMahon, this isn't much different than what they've done the years before. So when people say, they've done more than they have in years past, no, they haven't. This is pretty
Yeah.
It's pretty standard.
Like I called it, it's the bare minimum.
Yeah, I'm going to trade with 2 teams. One of them's going to be the Braves, and I'm going to send a reliever to them. And then I'm going to double dip with a team. Well, the Yankees have now joined Bill Schmidt's trading circle of trust.
A team that's willing to negotiate with the Rockies.
A team that, no, honestly, it's not that much of a sacrifice for them to deal from their system. Because coming into this year, Evan, the Yankees have a worse system than the Rockies.
Yeah, there's
rank-wise per MLB Pipeline. They're ranked worse than the Rockies.
And are there other guys in the system I still would have taken from the Yankees? You betcha. I could say that for any farm system. There's always going to be some guys that you like. But I think a lot of it was, we had a lot of stories come out around this deadline about how infuriating the Rockies are to deal with, how they are weird and insular and confusing. The term skull-crushing ennui was used, which is become a favorite of mine, of they don't really negotiate. They don't really reach out. They wait for you to come to them with offers, and if they do not like your offer, they will show you the door.
Yeah, they wait for a team. They don't call back and say, oh, yeah, like we're looking for this or that. They say, what are you willing to give up? Which, that's not a good way to do business with these other teams.
Yeah, versus...
You can come back and say, hey, we're looking for this type of guy. We're looking for these types of players or this type of stuff. Like, what do you have? That's when you say, okay, what do you have that fits this thing?
2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, they should have been calling other teams and going, we noticed that you need a third baseman.
Yeah.
Here is what we would like. But, hey, what are you willing to part with? What have you got?
Yeah.
It's another nagging frustration of how this organization operates. And I don't believe that they couldn't have gotten anything for Jimmy Herget, who, as I said earlier, yes, the Rockies need a solid veteran bullpen piece who can get them through games. But there is no reason for them to hang on to a reliever with a 2.86 ERA at the deadline. You mean to tell me that not a single person was at least sniffing around the idea of Austin Gomber, who's been okay outside of Coors Field this season, or Mickey Moniak and Tyler Freeman, who both have years of team control and have been very, very good offensively, both Freeman both at home on the road and Moniak at home, but they're excess goods. It's all excess goods for the Rockies.
Yeah, or like teams were sniffing around, like inquiring about Kyle Freeland. No, the Rockies said we're willing to pretty much trade anybody except Ezekiel Tovar. But as we know, they didn't really mean that.
Yeah.
Because you could imagine, like, I want to be a fly on the wall. What were teams maybe willing to offer? What were they talking about with Austin Gomber, Kyle Freeland, Hunter Goodman, Brenton Doyle? No, some of these excess goods.
Victor Vodnik and Seth Halverson were allegedly on the table for this deadline. But you wonder how much the Rockies were actually willing to part with these guys. Yes, they're paying lip service to the idea that, we'd be willing to let him go for the right price, but how possible did they make it for teams to come up with that right price to offer?
Yeah, because, like, as much as I hate the idea of maybe trading Seth Halverson, like, if a good deal that gives you a good little haul comes back, then you'd be stupid not to do it. And because we saw, like, what did the A's do with Mason Miller? Like, the Rockies weren't going to get Mason Miller return, but could you get something that's kind of in its vein? Could you get a good little stack of prospects? Maybe. Yeah,
and it's so frustrating because, like I said, these are all excess goods. I love Victor Vodnik. I love Seth Halverson. But a high-octane leverage reliever, a notoriously volatile position to begin with, is not something that a rebuilding team needs right now. And by the time the team actually needs guys like that, you have no idea what their performance is going to be like. Yeah. And it would have stank to part with either one of them. But if you got a good enough haul for it, you do it.
Yeah. And, like, hindsight's 20/20, but now Seth Halverson looking at potential Tommy John. No, depending on the status of his elbow, which don't exactly know at time of recording, but nobody's optimistic Okay,
Yeah.
then you lose him for another year. You could have traded him earlier this week and gotten a haul of prospects. Oh no, this has happened now when he's pitching. Well, it sucks, but hey, at least we kind of got ahead of the curve and we got some stuff back. Like being willing to look at stuff. Brenton Doyle, Hunter Goodman. Like, yeah, it sucks. Like, they're good pieces, but nobody should have been off the table with this team. And yeah, they can say everybody's available, but we know that's not true. Guys with years of control that they view are no part of it. They have so much potential. We know what they can do. It's another of they probably overvalued their own guys compared to what other teams were willing to do.
Yeah. And we do have an update on Seth Halverson, and we'll talk about that after this next break because there's plenty more to discuss. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler for our third and final segment here of the day. You know, we've talked at length now about the deadline and what else the Rockies could have done, but right now the deadline is done. What's done is done, and now we have to look at what is going to happen with the Rockies for the rest of the season as they try and avoid setting the modern era single season loss record, as they try and continue to build on what they've been building on. And there have been some promising building blocks that we have seen, especially over the last month. July, honestly, pretty fun month to be a Rockies fan, all things considered. Actually getting some games won. Rockies come out and they're one of the better teams after the All-Star break. They've won a couple series. They had some crazy, insane games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, this team has not been agonizing to watch like it was at the very beginning of the season. But there's still a couple months left to play, and you've got to wonder what is next. And we'll start with talking about Seth Halverson, who left the game on Saturday, threw a pitch, immediately looked to the dugout that something was wrong. Obviously, the worst case scenario is probably Tommy John surgery. It's very difficult to see in the angles that we have. You know, there's usually a telltale pop around the elbow of the ligament going, and you can't really see that because of the angle, but you can see his arm as he raises it down just go limp and dead. And there's not been a lot of optimism surrounding this. He had an MRI today, and as of time of recording right now, Thomas Harding is saying that the results of the MRI are considered inconclusive. They're going to work on getting other opinions. They have nothing else to report at this time. And this would be, if he does need Tommy John, it's going to be the second time he would need it. He had it as a freshman when he was in college with the University of Missouri before he transferred to Tennessee. But just a really, really tough state of affairs. And, you know, you want to hope for the best, like you got with Zach Agnos, where Zach Agnos left under similar circumstances a week or so ago. MRI came back clean, but the optimism right now is not there for Halverson.
Yeah, it'd be a rough blow because then, you need Tommy John. Well, we're not seeing him till 2027, and just keeps pushing the clock back. You take one step forward, two steps back. That's Rockies baseball, baby.
Yeah, and just tough for him. He looked pretty upset, and we're hoping that maybe we can still avoid the worst. But an inconclusive MRI is not great, unfortunately. And that was coming directly from Halverson. Apparently, he told Ryan Spielborgs that the results were inconclusive. So all we can do is sort of wait and see. And the one positive that came out of it is that we're probably going to see more of Dugan Darnell, who's been an awesome story and made his MLB debut over the weekend. And he can slot in a late inning sort of role like he's done with the Albuquerque Isotopes.
Yeah, that's a good transition because we can talk about Dugan Darnell a little bit here because he's just been, you've probably heard his name if you haven't been following the minors, but you've probably heard the name Dugan Darnell. All the folks over at Blake Street Banner or Dugan Darnell #1 Stan. Just an awesome story. Undrafted free agent. Rockies signed in, was it 2021? In February, he cold called all 30 MLB teams, went undrafted out of a D3 college, went on the indie ball circuit, played a little bit in Australia, but went on that indie ball circuit, found success, cold emailed all 30 teams looking for opportunities, and then the Rockies took a chance on him. And he just blazed through the minors, dominated at each level, punching dudes out, not walking many, limiting runs, just being a dog on the mound.
Yeah, been a fan favorite basically everywhere he has gone so far in his career, and it's because he's such an interesting. First of all, it's a very unique name, Dugan Darnell, but he's also just a really interesting story where not originally a pitcher, but kind of just discovered while putzing around with some teammates in college that he could throw a fastball in the 90s. And, you know, he was originally a middle infielder. And he comes up and like you said, he went on the indie circuit after going undrafted, cold called everybody, posted video of his pitching on social media, trying to get a minor league contract, and ultimately ended up with the Rockies and got to play a part in one of the most fascinating games that I have ever watched. And that was the Rockies come from behind victory against the Pittsburgh Pirates on Friday, where they were down 9 runs before they even got a chance to bat and ended up winning 17-16.
Yeah, and he gets the win. After throwing 2 scoreless innings, the only pitcher to go unscathed. And he throws up for 2 innings. And then he gives up a home run the next day, but he replaced Seth Halverson and then closed out that game.
Yeah. And he's also a fun story because he's very, very close friends with Bretton Doyle, who came out of a D2 school, and they sort of came up through the minors together for big chunks of it. Just a really nice story, and that's the kind of thing that we're going to be looking at through the rest of this season.
Yeah, those nice little stories of guys that, no, this is a team where the plan on paper of the guys you penciled in haven't really worked out. Yeah, you got to tear that sheet up. SHEET. I'm not saying something with a weird accent. You got to tear up that sheet of paper and see what works. You got to turn over every rock. And Dugan Darnell, he could be a dude that, he's older, like 28. So who knows? But you can ride it for now and then see what happens. So maybe you don't bring him back. Maybe you don't. But it's awesome that he's getting his chance now, and you just see, maybe we have something here. Or if not, maybe another team. No, it gives him exposure to where then other teams can give him a look.
Yeah, let it at least be something that you can enjoy for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Like Tim Melville many years ago. Just a fun, interesting story of a guy that you really want to succeed because he's a good dude who's worked really, really hard.
Winton Bernard. So there's still room for those just nice stories. Give those guys a platform. Just like just see what they can do, and then maybe they get an opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah. Or maybe you decide, hey, you can help us get through this rebuild. We're probably not going to win a whole lot of ball games, but you can be an important piece in a rebuilding organization.
Yeah, you can help us figure things out. And I think like Tommy Kinley coming up with the Rockies, and then his whole journey through the league. There's a lot of fun stories to be had, and Dugan Darnell is one of them. Awesome to see for him.
Yeah. And, also pairing up with Dugan Darnell of a guy who wasn't necessarily on a lot of people's radars is Warming Bernabel, who has just been absolutely on fire in his first week and change in the big leagues, where former top prospect, very highly touted, was once the number 7 organizational prospect for the Rockies, and just kind of fell off the radar, honestly, after a tough 2023 and 2024 in Hartford. Came back this year, hitting very well in AAA Albuquerque, playing third and first base, and suddenly he gets the call.
Yeah, and you could say he's warmed up to playing in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm hilarious, Evan. But
absolutely.
I'm trying to look up who was he DFA'd for? Because it happened in spring training. So the outright warming Bernabel. So this was back in 2024. You want to know why, Evan? Because the Rockies selected the contract of Alan Trejo in 2024.
No.
So he was DFA'd in place of Alan Trejo.
But he was going through a tough time. He got shot in I believe it was a burglary attempt. He was struggling on the field, and he really turned it around in AAA this year and came up. And what's really crazy is he is already, by wins above replacement, one of the Rockies' most valuable position players of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's played 8 games.
Yeah.
And he started that first 8 games with a 7-game hit streak. He set the Rockies franchise record for most extra base hits through his first 7 games of his career, breaking the previous record set by Trevor Story in 2016. And, not a traditional first baseman, but has made some really flashy plays at first base, usually pairing up with a pitcher. He had one the other day where it was him and Victor Vodnik pairing up for a really fun play at first base there. And since he's come up, he's started every game because he's given the Rockies a reason to put him in the lineup every time. And today, against the Pirates, the Rockies lost against the Pirates, was the first game of his career in the MLB so far where he didn't have a hit. But what the key thing is there? He only struck out one time. And that's what he's doing, is he's not really striking out, which is what the Rockies need so badly. So in 8 games, he has just 4 strikeouts. He gets his bat into the zone very quickly. Good quick hands, good bat speed. Doesn't have the prettiest swing in the world, but he gets it through the zone quickly and where it needs to be. He makes a lot of contact.
Yeah. And, is he the long-term answer at first base for the Rockies? No, nobody's saying that. But, for a season where it is right now, a guy can come onto the scene, and he's just putting bat to ball. No, he's just the second player in the modern era to have, 14-plus hits, have 5-plus extra base hits through his first 7 games. It's pretty cool stuff. That he's joined Trevor Story in some cool rookie, categories for the Rockies. It's a nice story to see him come out and put bat to ball and do what he does best, which is aggressive approach, but not too aggressive where he's striking out a ton.
Yeah.
Nice disciplined at bat where he'll make good quality contact. And that fits a mold of a lot of guys in the system. Kyle Karros, Jared Thomas, ton of guys that make good contact.
In terms of results, he's a more power-oriented version of guys we've already seen. You mentioned a couple guys, but Tyler Freeman doesn't draw a lot of walks, but also doesn't strike out a lot, just makes a lot of contact.
Yeah. And I like what Warren Schaefer said. No, I think it was on after Saturday. Somebody asked him a question about playing at first base, and he's made some good plays. No, and it's a grind. He's working hard to try and do that. But is he going to be the long-term answer? Probably not. No, there's other players that will take over that spot. But for right now, he can do it. And I like what Schaaf said, there's nothing to indicate that he couldn't become a great glove at first base.
Yes. I forget who asked him the question, but yeah, they asked, is there any reason why he couldn't be, is there any reason, could he be the next answer at first base? And Schaefer's answer, like you said, is I see no reason why he couldn't.
Yeah, there's nothing he's shown.
And that's the kind of mindset that Schaefer's shown throughout a lot of this is I see no reason why this guy can't be a solution, why this guy can't be a great player. And, it's caused some frustration because he's got that minor league mindset of everybody's got to get their playing time. Everybody deserves a chance to show what they are worth here. But that works out sometimes.
Yeah, when it hits for this team, it's really exciting. They put in some fight and guys buy into it.
We are all probably tired of seeing Orlando Arcia. I get that. But on the other hand, now we've got stories like Worming Bernabel. Dugan Darnell. The fun stories that make watching a bad baseball team much more worth it down the stretch.
Yeah. And like the Orlando Arcias could turn into other guys that get called up. Or you just ride with Arcia the rest of the year and you're like, oh, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter at this point.
And honestly, at the very least you can say with Arcia is he has been huge in this clubhouse. And I know that we talk a lot about clubhouse presence and all that stuff, but legitimately, every single one of his teammates seems to adore this guy. And he is the first guy to run out and grab somebody for a hug or get them pumped up or be excited for one of his teammates. And that's something that a team like this really needs, honestly.
Yeah. So, like, as much as some co-hosts may really, truly despise Arcia, when the player Arcia, not the person, but the player Arcia, like, he still has a value for a team of this nature. I don't care if Arcia is going 0 for 3 on the day. Like, he plays good defense, and he can run into one here and there.
Yeah, hit a home run the other day.
But, like, I'm not expecting much out of him. Like, he's here for the vibes, and they need that.
It reminds me a lot of Gerardo Parra.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a vibes guy. And do I think that Orlando Arcia should be playing every day? Yeah, probably not. His bat is not that good, and his defense is okay. But when you see how important he clearly is to a lot of these young guys on the team, when Bretton Doyle hit the walk-off on Friday night, and he was the first guy out of the dugout to give him a huge hug, when he is going around and getting everybody else pumped up, when he's making gestures at Mickey Moniak and they're all doing their thing, that's really important.
Yeah. It helps sets a culture among a team, and that's something the Rockies haven't had in a guy. So, like, there's silver linings you can find in everything. Yeah, RC is not good playing, does not have good play right now, but he's doing a lot of good in other places.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Like a Kyle Farmer isn't either. No, Kyle Farmer is a different sort of energy and leadership in that clubhouse as just kind of the mentor character, but Arcia brings the energy.
He does. And, that's an energy that we really need. And I feel like we've ended up talking a lot about the positives here. There is one thing that we do need to talk about before we go, and that is that Michael Toglia has been optioned back to AAA Albuquerque, with Warming Bernabel essentially having taken his job for the time being. And it's being viewed, again, as Warren Schaefer has said, a mental reset of get him back down, get him regular at bats, get him confident, and help him try and find his swing, because it has been a rough season for Michael Toglia.
Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter kind of say the biggest disappointment for the Rockies this year is Michael Toglia. After the season that he had, and we talked about it the last time he was optioned earlier this season. It's just, I don't know what happened, where he had that incredible run last season. We're like, okay, Toglia has locked it down. He's settled in. He's adjusted. He can take a big step forward. He needs to take a big step forward still in 2025. But he's a dude. He's a guy who can be a piece, because excellent defense, a lot of power potential. This is a guy who can drive in runs. And unfortunately, the strikeouts have continued to be a problem. They've gotten worse. His walks are still at a league average, but not enough to compensate for the strikeouts. And then the power hasn't shown up.
Yeah.
So he's gotten worse really in all three areas of his three true outcomes.
And it's at the point where you could only have so many guys who are just on the team for defense.
Mm-hmm.
And for Toglia, yes, his first base defense is good, but his bat's just not. He's got a gargantuan hole in his swing that just hasn't been solved. And if I'm being honest, I'm not sure we see Toglia again this season. We might, but we might not, because the thing is, with the mental reset of being optioned to AAA, that's really only supposed to be needed like once.
Yeah. No, once this year, And he responded. He always tears up in AAA. Comes back, and he was showing some signs of life when he came back. But then it just fell back into old habits. And, maybe it's a sense of stubbornness, of adjusting. I don't know really what's happened. But it's a huge disappointment, and first base is not a position where you can really have a glove first type of guy. I think that's not a position. That is an offensive position. You need a guy that can be productive there while being good defensively. He's got one aspect, and when he connects with one, boy, howdy, can he clobber him. But it's becoming too few and far in between. No, we always talk about the hope was he could be a Kyle Schwarber, who's really the true three outcomes, a successful guy. He can walk a ton. Average historically hasn't been great. It's been actually pretty good this year. He's evolved, but he draws a ton of walks. He doesn't strike out an absurd amount. It's all balanced. He's hugely successful. Instead, or like worst case scenario, he could have been Joey Gallo. Because, he's going to hit a ton of bombs, but he's going to hit 200 at best. Toglia has not become either of those.
I think what says it all is that despite the fact that he was still on the roster, like we all thought when Warming Bernabel got called up that he was probably going to play third base.
Yeah, because it's right after Ryan McMahon gets traded.
And instead, Michael Tolia's playing time completely evaporated. Yeah. He's basically, I think he's appeared in one game as the designated hitter since Ryan McMahon was traded.
Yeah.
And
like he hit that home run that one day.
And that says, I think, a lot about where the organization is viewing him right now.
Yeah, it could be like, and I think there's been that reporting where like the team has been losing patience with his development at the plate, and it's just not happening. Which is the same because I like Michael Toglia. I had high hopes for him, and it sucks to see him not reach his potential. But the league adjusted to him from last year, and he did not adjust back. And now, and I think the hard part too, Evan, is that there wasn't a lot of pressure at the position. And so that makes it worse because, it was his. There was nobody pushing him off his spot. It was his.
Yeah. It was occasionally you'd throw Farmer or Arcia or somebody there to spell him, but and Keston Hero was here for like a week.
Yeah, well, he was sent down.
And outside of that, the Rockies really don't have any first baseman.
Yeah, there was nobody knocking on the door. There was nobody lighting a fire. Like, it was his position. Nobody was taking it.
And I think it away. I think what says even more is that today the Rockies claimed a power-hitting first baseman on waivers and optioned him to AAA.
Yeah.
So he's, Blaine Krim from the Rangers organization, who has always been an absolute masher in the PCL. I know some folks who are big Topes followers, and they're very excited to have him down in Albuquerque because he blows up the ball and plays fine first base. And I think that might be another way for the Rockies to be putting pressure on Toglia.
Yeah. Because if not, like, it could be you see what you can get for him in the offseason, or he's a non-tender. Like, those really the two options you're sitting at. Because there's really no point in holding on to a guy who's just not going to really develop into what you hope he could be.
Yeah.
Time's just running out.
At some point, you have to cut bait.
Yeah.
And if this organization views, say, Charlie Condon as the future at first base, there's only so much time.
Yeah. Or like an Aiden Longwell's moving up through the system. You get versatility that you can throw there. But, like, it's just, it breaks your heart to see these players that happen to him. And, he has one more option year left. So, next season, spring training time come around, that's kind of like your last opportunity. The next year really feels like that last year if he's still on this roster, but you could look in the off season.
Yeah, it's got to be
move him.
It's got to be do or die for Michael Toglia. You've got to, if you are going to spend the rest of this year in AAA, you've got to demolish that ball down in AAA.
Yeah,
you've got to make it so growth. That you've got to basically take jobs away from guys like Keston Hiura and the other guys who have been playing first base down in Albuquerque and say, this is mine, and I'm coming back for my job at the big league level.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the Rockies want. Maybe this, like, who knows? This all could be like, we need to put pressure on this guy because he's never really had the pressure of, I've got to earn the job. It's got to be mine.
Yeah, earn it back, especially. Because, like, he did steal it the first time around. He took it from Elehuris Montero, who also kind of lost it on his own. But, like,
yeah, I would say more so that Elehuris Montero lost the job versus it got stolen.
It was a perfect, like, inflection. They crossed on that chart of Montero getting bad and Tolia getting really good.
Yeah.
But, like, when the other pressure was like, hey, Kyle Farmer can play first base for you. Chris Bryant could if his back wasn't a pile of mush.
A 35-year-old journeyman and a dude whose spine has been reduced to fine powder are not exactly competition.
Yeah. And when there's nobody in AAA, aside from Owen Miller, maybe Sean Bouchard, like, maybe this is a flex point where the team's, like, putting some pressure on, like, dude, we, like, have these hopes for you. We need you to start paying dividends. Like, you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because we've seen his highs. We've seen his lows. You got to find the balance.
Yeah. You need that creamy middle.
Yeah, the creamy nougaty center. Wild stuff, but yeah. Well, good luck to Tolio. I hope he figures it out.
We love the guy. Like, I want nothing more than for Tolia to figure it out. Truly. Truly, truly, truly. But I think this is the right move, unfortunately. And, we'll keep watching the rest of the way.
Also, having to kind of round this out really quickly, I looked up the non-roster invites for Spring Training 2024. There wasn't a whole lot of competition for Warming Bernabel. Like, yeah, he was a middle infielder on the roster. Your non-rosters were Connor Kaiser, Grant Levine, his first baseman, Ryan Ritter, Aaron Schunk, Alan Trejo. And so of that group, Alan Trejo won the opening day roster job.
And of all of those guys, like, none of them are really first basemen or anything like that, too. Except for Grant Levine, who is now playing in Mexico.
Yeah.
And not playing very well in Mexico either.
Yeah, because then the Rockies opening day roster had Jake Cave, who was your perceived first baseman. There's Chris Bryant. Michael Tolia made that roster. So,
well, even this year, who the non-roster invites were Keston Hiura, and for infielders, you had Owen Miller, Julio Carreras, Keston Hiura, Kyle Karros, Nick Martini, and Ryan Ritter. Only one of those guys is a first baseman. And even then, not really, because Keston Hiura came up as a second baseman, and Nick Martini was listed as a first baseman, but he's a right fielder. He always has been.
Until this moment, I forgot that Nick Martini was on this team earlier this year.
The guy I keep forgetting about is Scott Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
He was in and out like a whisper.
Yeah, well, and you see, like, the so-and-so award is wearing this jersey number, previously worn by such and such this season. Like,
what? Honestly, the last thing I'll say, because I know we got to close up shop here, I actually really like 52 for Duke and Darnell because it reminds me of Daniel Bard. And I just think about the connotations of a guy who has pushed and worked really gosh darn hard to get to this point. Like, I remember Daniel Bard with the number 52 duct taped on the back of a blank Rockies jersey as he was trying to make the team. And I don't know, that's special. So I really like the number for Dugan Darnell, honestly.
Yeah. Also, real quick, congrats, Daniel Bard, on retirement.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we mentioned it, but the other week, Daniel Bard announced that he is retiring from Major League Baseball. And kudos to him on a well and hard-fought career.
Hire that man.
Yes, I want him in this organization. I legitimately do.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a lot to offer. It's the same as Scott Oberg. We've seen...
When's his book going to come out?
Whose book?
Daniel Bard. He was writing a book with somebody.
I thought you were going to say Scott Oberg was writing a book, and I'm like, I'd read a Scott Oberg book.
I'd do that too.
But that's going to do it here for us on another episode of Affected by Altitude. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Remember that you can always find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice. That could be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can catch the video version on youtube.com. Remember that you can also find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on basically all of your favorite social media platforms of choice, including YouTube. That's at Rocky Mountain Rooftop, at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Skyler, where can the folks find you at?
Find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons or over on Blue Sky at STimmons13. I don't think this ever improves my follower numbers, but hey, we'll say it every week. And then writing stuff over at purpleroad.com as well as over at fansfirstsports.com.
And you can find me over on Purple Row as well, writing the Monday Rock Piles and the weekly Pebble Reports. And catch me over on the socials, especially on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. Alrighty, well, that'll wrap it up here for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to us. We will catch you next time as we enter the final stretch. Really only about 2 months left of baseball here for Rockies fans. It's August.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Fun going back to school, kids.
Ugh. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for listening. Skyler, hit him with it.
Farewell. This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.